Different denominators. Esther was diagnosed with a stroke. Right after her stroke, Esther only had 2/3 of her mobility in her arm left. After resolving the vascular issue and going to physical therapy, she regained 1/6 of her mobility back. What is the fraction of Esther's mobility still missing in her arm? So to answer this question, let's write down the problem. So we have starting out with 2/3 of Esther's arm not working. Then after she goes to treatment, she gets 1/6 of it back. However, she still has some parts of her arm that are not working. In order to find out how much is not working, we would need to find the difference between these two numbers. So that means we're going to do subtraction. Now we cannot just subtract these two numbers. And the reason is because they do not share a common denominator. So let's go over a few things first. So if the denominators do not match, we need to find the least common multiple or the least common denominator. And we do this by multiply the denominators by missing factors. Then multiply the numerators by the same factors. And if you do not know the least common denominator, you can always multiply the two denominators together. The reason that we multiply both the top and the bottom in each fraction is to keep the fraction the same. So let's apply all of this back to our problem. So we have 2/3 minus 1/6. So we will need to get the common denominator. So we know that 3 and 6 share a common factor of 3. So to get from 3 to 6, we would just need to multiply it by 2. So whatever we multiply the denominator by, we multiply the numerator by. This keeps it the same because we're essentially multiplying this whole number by 1. So this problem now becomes 2 times 2, which is 4. 3 times 2 is 6, minus 1/6. Now we can actually subtract this problem because we have the common denominators. So 4 minus 1 is 3, and we keep the denominator, so it's 6. So 3, 6. But we could actually reduce. So if we reduce this number becomes 1/2 because we divided the top and the bottom by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 1/2 of our arm is still not working. So let's look at another example. Example 2. Dan's wife called 911 after noticing that Dan had many of the symptoms of stroke. If it took the ambulance 5/6 of an hour to pick up Dan and transport him to the hospital, and it took 3/8 of an hour before the vascular blockage was resolved, what fraction of time did it take between the stroke occurring and the blood flow returning to Dan's brain? So to answer this question, we're going to write these out. We'll write 5/6 plus 3/8. Now we notice that these do not have common denominators. So one easy way to get a common denominator between two different terms is to multiply the denominator by the other term on top and bottom. So we will go 8 times 8 here, and then 6 times 6 here. So then let's go ahead and multiply each fraction out. So 5 times 8 is equal to 40, which is over 48, because 6 times 8 is 48. Then we're going to add 3 times 6, which is 18, and our denominator is 48. Now that we have the same common denominator, we can now add. So 40 plus 18 is equal to 58 over 48. Now we notice that both these terms can be reduced because they're both even. So let's just go ahead and divide by 2 on top and bottom. So 58 divided by 2 is equal to 29, and 48 divided by 2 is equal to 24. So this is our final answer. So when adding or subtracting fractions with different denominators, remember you need to have the same denominator. So you can do this by finding the least common multiple between the two numbers, or if the numbers are small enough, by multiplying them together. Anything that you do to the bottom denominator, you need to also do to the numerator. And once you have added or subtracted, you need to look to see if you can reduce your fraction, and then you are done with your problem.